The term growth gets thrown around quite a lot in crypto. Most of the time, this is code for we ran an incentivized engagement campaign and got a lot of botted users for a short period of time, or that we grew our followers on social media and did loads of partnership announcements. But this is not really growth. Growth, real compounding growth, is quite rare in this space. So, in this video, we're going to introduce the notion of growth loops and how they can help you drive real compounding growth for your product. So to do that, we first have to understand what exactly is growth. Well, I'll tell you what growth is not first of all. Growth is not partnerships, quote unquote partnerships, which are logo for logo. Unless a partnership has a real tangible impact, it's not going to support the growth of the company. It's not increasing your social media following because that might not necessarily have a direct effect on the output of your company. And it's not short-term user spikes because ultimately what we're looking for is a compounding effect where your users and revenue grow over time, not spikes in users here or there that lead to a lot of high churn and low quality usage. Now, in my opinion, growth is described as the following. It's the ability to drive month-on-month increases in user base or in revenue in a way that builds on itself, a system that compounds. And growth loops are one of the keys to unlocking this compounding growth. So to understand a growth loop, we have to understand its predecessor, the trusty funnel, let's say. Funnels have been used in sales and marketing for a very, very long time. And they work. They're very good at driving user acquisition, but down to a certain point. And there are three reasons why I think that funnels are not the best mechanism for driving a growth engine, and I'll explain why now. So if we take a look at our standard funnel, right? Funnel looks like this, right? We have a top, a middle, and a bottom of the funnel. And what happens is a user will start at the top of the funnel and they will be intrigued by some activities or content. They'll be nurtured down the funnel and they'll land a conversion. And this conversion being denoted by a dollar sign, but not necessarily restricted to revenue. This can be, for example, if you're a social media platform, this conversion could be signing up and posting something. Now, when the user gets to this point in the funnel, that's it. The funnel is over. There's no auto compounding. There's no sending this output on conversion and putting it back into the top. And there's no feeding a loop for user acquisition. It's very much straight to the point. Get a user, nurture him, convert, and then that's that. And then it's passed on to someone else. Now, the reason why this is not so good for a growth loop is because there's three aspects of a funnel or characteristics of a funnel that make it not suitable for being the core of a growth engine. And the first is that funnels are one directional, right? As we just outlined, funnels kind of just go in one direction. They go down only. Obviously, we want a mechanism that compounds the outputs of our users to engage more users. And if the funnel ends at just converting that user and nothing more, then we don't get that compounding effect. The second issue with a funnel is that it's very, very reliant on an external channel. Let's say we have our funnel be a set of influencers and all of them decide they don't want to work anymore, then our funnel is broken. If we are working on Twitter and our account gets banned, then our funnel is broken. So we need to really be careful of how much reliance we have on specific platforms when we're designing our funnels. And if you're relying on this funnel to be the growth engine for your company and the channel goes down, then you're in a bit of a sticky situation. And finally, one big reason why I think funnels are not good for driving growth engines, and this is something that a lot of people don't particularly talk about, is they actually drive operational friction. And what I mean by this is sometimes when you're in an organization, different segments of the company have different goals. When they're all within the same funnel and they're all trying to target different goals, it can skew the performance of that funnel. So I'll give you an example. Within a startup, you might have three sectors. You might have a product team, you might have a sales team, and you might have a marketing team. And the product team's goal is to improve retention, whereas the sales team's goal is to improve revenue, and the marketing team's goal is to improve lead flow. Now, let's just take the marketing and sales team. If the sales team close more revenue or close more deals, enterprise deals, for example, on a very niche subset of the audience that they're targeting with the marketing, then they might ask the marketing team to go ahead and just target those people, right? But if the marketing team's KPIs are to bring in more abundance of leads overall, then that's kind of sacrificing the marketing team's KPIs to make the sales team look better. And yes, it's probably better for the company, but there's friction there because the marketing team want to keep their jobs and they want to make sure that they're hitting their KPIs. And if their KPIs have to be sacrificed for the sake of the sales team, then it doesn't reflect well on them. And that's a little bit of operational friction that you don't really want. You want everyone to be aligned on the same goal. And so these funnels can create this operational friction that might not be wanted within a company, and it might provide some dysfunction to the company during its growth stage, which is not something you really want when you're growing a company. And this is where growth loops come in to solve this problem. So we can introduce growth loops here. And a growth loop is essentially a closed loop system that engages your product, your monetization channel, and your sales channel as well, to create a system that brings an input into the product. That input drives an action that produces an output, and that output then funnels up to create more inputs. Now, what does that really mean? Well, unlike funnels, this growth loop is compounding. It compounds in on itself and allows us to scale the number of inputs a lot faster because we're generating an output and incentivizing that action that will help us generate more inputs. Let's give an example, right? Medium is a good one. Medium might have some user through their funnel join Medium and write an article, right? So they've joined Medium through the funnel. Maybe we could even put like a little funnel here and say, okay, cool. The user came through the funnel and they became a user, right? That's that. The user then goes ahead and does some action. And that action in this case is creating an article. So the output of that action is a really good article that is now shared on social media. Maybe 5 people see this article and they go to Medium to read it. And they create an account and they sign in. And they like the reading experience, so they start exploring Medium more. So now Medium has acquired 3 users on the reading side or 5 users on the reading side just for this one output from this one user previously. Now, maybe there's a couple of these users who like to write. So now these 2 users out of the 5 that have joined to read the article are now starting to write articles on Medium. And now for the price of 1 input, you've generated 2 more inputs. And so that is a really nice little cycle that you can keep repeating because those people will create more articles and they'll spread the articles. And that growth loop is quite sound. This is kind of the essence of it. We have 1 input driving some action, creating an output that drives more inputs. Now, there's 3 core reasons why growth loops trump funnels. And they are the following. Growth loops, first of all, compound. Now, as we saw with Medium, that 1 input generated an output that brought in 2 more inputs. So 2 more users for the price of 1. And those 2 more users might write more articles, which might engage more people. And so it's a compounding effect that drives over time. The second thing about growth loops that's really important to understand is that they are defensible. The reason why they work so well is because it's contextual to the product, and competitors cannot copy your product. Now, if you have a funnel, most people can copy a funnel, but ultimately you want to build a moat around your user acquisition to help you scale in the long run and maintain market share. And that's why defensibility is really, really important, and growth loops provide you with that. And third of all, there's operational alignment. So instead of everyone kind of fighting over their own KPIs, they have their one shared KPI, which is growth loop velocity. How fast can we grow this loop? How much can we scale this loop? It doesn't matter about this many marketing qualified leads or this many data or whatever. It's about how can we feed the growth loop and make sure that we're all aligned in driving leads, revenue, and retention all within this one loop. So understanding what a growth loop is and why you would want it is one thing, but then you have to put it together. So the question becomes, how do you build a growth loop? The first thing that we need to understand is our users' behavior. Once we understand what behavior our users are currently exhibiting in our product, we then need to identify what behavior we want them to be taking and what output we want them to be generating and how we can incentivize that. And incentives don't have to be monetary, they can just be kind of guiding them towards that action. And so when we have that idea of the output we want them to take and the output that's currently happening, we have that gap and we can kind of fill that and build, product experiences that help nurture users towards that expected output. Now, to understand what buttons we can press to guide users towards that action and how hard we can press that button requires time, experimentation, and data. And so we kind of need to outline what kind of things we need, right? So we need to know what the input is, what the core action they'll take, what the output from that user will create, and how that output should attract that next user. Now, as I mentioned, data is very, very important with this. It's not just about finding a creative way to do things, we have to track things. And so there's a few tools that you can use to help you analyze that data. So for on-chain data, you can use things like June dashboards. You can use Nansen and Arkham for more wallet-focused behavioral data. For on-product stuff, you can use Mixpanel, Posthog, Amplitude. And for blended data, you can use Tableau or Metabase to kind of create more custom dashboards to kind of help you identify things that would be non-obvious to the naked eye. And so that's the basics of how you would build a growth loop. It's identifying the behavior you want to incentivize and using data to back that up and iterate and iterate and iterate. So are there any examples that we can look at for growth loops that might be applicable to crypto that we might see? Now, there are a few examples I do have here. We've been through one of them already, which is Medium. The second one I'll go through before going into any crypto ones is Notion, because I think Notion is a great example as well. So when a user comes to Notion, they might play with the platform, develop their own dashboard, XYZ, and sometimes they'll create their own boards and create their own templates. And now Notion provides this marketplace for these templates, so the user can essentially post their template in the marketplace for free or for paid or whatever it might be. And that will allow them to obviously get more distribution for what they're building, maybe get a better standing with their personal brand, or whatever it might be, whatever their goal might be with creating this dashboard. These templates will be shared. These templates will be found on intent-based search like Google. And this allows people to find Notion and find a tool within Notion that allows them to hit their goal. For example, if I were looking for a productivity hack or productivity journal, I might type in productivity journal template. Maybe Notion will come up. They'll have one of the user-generated templates. I'll access it. I'll onboard into Notion. I'll use the template. So that is Notion using a user-generated output to drive more inputs for the brand and for the product. Now, a cool crypto one, and I'm not the biggest fan of Kaito for a few reasons in terms of how people are using their product and how it's being perpetuated online, but they do have an interesting growth loop, which we can appreciate. Now, that growth loop actually plays on humans' desire for validation and for being told that they're right and they're doing something good. So a new user will come to Kaito and they will start talking about Kaito and crypto, and they will earn yaps, which validates, their content. And people will see that they're talking about different projects and talking about Kaito and crypto and earning money for their content. And they will see things like smart followers and mindshare, and they'll want a piece of that pie because that's social validation that they're doing a good job at what they're supposed to be doing. When a user onboards and they create content, other people will see that and start creating content and onboard into Kaito, fueling this flywheel of, hey, I want to onboard, I want to earn money, I want social validation, I want to be known as doing a good job. And I think that's really interesting. And that's a cool way that they've been able to onboard creators through the monetary and the social benefits of Kaito. And this also lays in with their social scorecard, which shows, the map of who they engage with and their kind of social graph, how many smart followers they have, and all that kind of cool stuff. So that's a really interesting growth flywheel where it really relies on the product providing this infrastructure that allows people's innate feeling for validation to be heard and to be perpetuated, through their product, and allow people to kind of onboard into their product to kind of get that feeling as well. And the last one I have here is GMX. So GMX, obviously, a pub exchange, it's been around since like 2022, I believe. They have obviously, this goes for a lot of other dexes and pub dexes that would be similar, but the user flywheel is very, very simple, right? It's user comes on, they're a trader, they trade, they generate fees for trading. These fees are not necessarily kicked back to the company, but kicked back to those who provide the liquidity for exchanging and trading and whatnot. And so fees go to the LPs, which improves their yield. Now, once they have an improved yield and they get some money for providing their liquidity, they might deposit more because they see it as a profitable action. So once they deposit more, the liquidity deepens for the traders. So it becomes a better trading experience for any traders who want to come aboard. And that deeper liquidity incentivizes more traders to come through. So you have a user, which is a trader, generate fees, which is the output from doing the activity of trading. Those fees are an output from the first user, which get given to the LPs. Those LPs use that extra yield to deposit back into the platform, deepen the liquidity, which incentivizes more traders to come and trade, and the flywheel continues like that. So it's a very interesting flywheel that is also something that can be used across many, many products. So given all of this, does that mean funnels are dead? No, of course not. Funnels are very good for their specific purpose, and that is driving a unique user acquisition, right? You take a user, you put them through the funnel, and you get a conversion at the end of it. Just because they're not supposed to be the engine for growth does not mean that they can't support in user acquisition. It's just that the nature of the funnel does not lean itself to be something that can be compounded over time natively within the architecture of that funnel. Using content to drive top of funnel awareness is great. Using other methods like lead magnets, like business development representatives to nurture those people once they kind of become aware of our brand is all important. That's a really important part of our funnel. But what happens when the user converts is really important. We have to make sure that we have a way to take the output from that conversion and utilize it to generate more inputs. And that's where the funnel lacks and where the growth loop comes in. So in an ideal world, you will have your funnels driving your initial user acquisition and your growth loops picking up that material from the funnel and using it as a way to kickstart the growth loop. So your funnels feed the growth loop. So if you're building a product in crypto and you're not designing it with growth loops in mind, you're going to have a bit of a shaky time trying to scale that product. Funnels drive that initial user acquisition, and growth loops are what compounds them into a sustainable, growing business. And ultimately, we're here to build compounding growth, not for one-off wins. If this video helped you reframe your perspective on growth, drop a like, drop a comment, feel free to share it with your friends. And if you are building in crypto and looking to go to market, build distribution, and drive compounding growth for your product, feel free to get in touch with us at Jello with the links in our description. I hope this video was great and valuable, and we'll see you in the next one.